brain sluice, slick with ectoplasmic juice.
Ecstatic energy, a fire that fuels our memory.
With genealogy, with spiritual topography.
Questions for your answers, we are data necromancers.
I think diarrhea is its own thing.
But it comes out of the budge hole.
Yeah, but like water, when it's thawed is water, and when it's frozen it's ice.
You had that so ready to launch.
I have a lot to say about diarrhea. I'm an expert in the matter.
We need to get you some more rice.
I don't know what the fuck I need, but I think it's a lobotomy is half of it.
You need to eat rice.
And that's our show, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining. Hope it's been fun.
Yeah.
I have been thinking about so much this past week. I sent you all of the conquistadors decimating what was known as Venice, the pyramids in Venice, which was where I can't pronounce it. Oh, for the love of God. Where Mexico City is now. Used to be beautiful, sweet marsh. Yeah. And then they just took down all the fucking pyramids, man. And when you stand in front of the cathedral in the square of Mexico City, and that was built on the base of the main pyramid, which is so fucking symbolic.
It's all about appropriation.
It's so symbolic. And then they drained all the lakes. Why would you do that? I mean, obviously you want to move in and build your dumb shit and take over and fuck off. But I was like, looking at old renderings of it, it looks beautiful.
Yeah, it's all about commerce and movement of probably
I'm just
goods.
So pissed at the Spaniards right now. Like, I was watching MotoGP stuff last night, prepping for a script, and I was like, fuck you.
Oh, shit.
That's how
the
much
sins
it's
of the
permeated
father.
my everything. Like you guys, why?
Well, I mean, it is terrible, but it's also like in the way that nature is cruel, and you can always guarantee that everything will die, and usually in nature a very violent death. I don't know, the tendency of human beings to colonize and, you know, conquest.
I want to know why it bothers me so much.
Because you have a bunch of dead people who talk to you, and they were all affected by it. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think that's like where I'm stuck to, is like I just had to, like, this is just the way of life. Nothing's permanent. It all...
And it definitely wasn't just the Spaniards who were fucking shit up all over the place.
No.
Portuguese.
The French.
English. French.
All the fucking European
Dutch.
assholes.
Yeah.
They're not assholes. We wouldn't be here without them. But yeah, it's inherent. Like the violence and the conquer and the...
It's almost like the result of the Roman Empire and like building all the infrastructure in Europe when they were like... that was part of the empire. They like left all the structure and then the empire fell. But then all the other bits... You know, all the sort of tribal nations took over and did their thing. I don't have a really deep knowledge of European history. I have never been turned on by like the kings and queens and shit.
No, speaking of that, I watched Frozen for the first time last night. I was like, I do not understand why this movie is so big. It was like the most...
What's the premise?
I don't know. There's a Frozen... I was so bored that I wasn't paying attention. And it's so like...
Was the song singable?
Yeah, the songs are obviously like they hired witches to craft.
Yeah.
They hired ancient muses and summoned them from the great beyond to like infect every fucking American. But it's all just like kings and queens and very vanilla and a lot of like sexual tension. I'm like, this is just so weird. I mean, Ruby was into it, so I was like, whatever. But I was like, I can't pay attention to this stuff. It's so boring.
It's like all of those couched messages, like they're like transforming your kid without, it's like a secret transformation. It's like your knowledge of European kingdoms and dynasties and like your gender role performance, like it's all like secretly going in through the infectious songs and stuff.
Yeah.
What is it called? I don't want to say grooming because that's not what I mean.
But wait, why were we talking about that? Oh, I was just about
Kings and queens and colonization, conquest.
It's also just
Mexico City, Spaniards, ancient aliens.
Insatiable Mind says North America had huge ancient earthworks. There's a lot of them. And it was so weird last year when I was in, not OBX, but it's by there. The Mustang.
Myrtle Beach.
The fucking Mustang Festival capital. I have never marveled at like just decrepit Americana. Like, dude, like the bottom of the fucking bubblegum barrel, man. Like, it's just dirty and disgusting. And there's a henna booth every 10 feet. I'm like, this must be some sort of front. I don't know. There's no way that this is just this many people want to do henna. I mean, maybe I'm wrong and I'm naive. It's most likely this scenario. But I just like, I counted and I had stopped at like 30 something. I was like, I'm done. There's a lot.
Were there equal a number of like t-shirt shops?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing. There's no culture. There's
and then like
nothing
places
interesting.
to get French fries, right? Or no? Maybe that's further north.
A lot of it was abandoned. I think there was like a big hurricane recently, and a lot of it was like shut down. I thought there'd be like cool tiki bars, or I'm thinking it's like 1968 and we're like, it's nothing. There's nothing out there.
No.
But I was like, oh, this area has a huge Native American history. Let's look up some like cool ancient sites to go to. Mm-hmm. Couldn't find a single one. I found
whitewashed.
Well, I found an article that's like, no, we keep them secret because we don't want people looting them. And I'm like, that's a lie. Like, that's a fucking lie. I was like, but then you think about it, there's the Serpent Mound, which is either in Ohio. I think that's in Ohio. There's some cool mounds, but yeah, the rest of it has been absolutely fucking built over with unaffordable luxury homes.
Welly. Some value judgments here from Whitney Hazelmeyer.
Lucas, what did I say last night? And you were like, and that is Whitney. Oh, yeah. On ancient texts. On
oh, yeah, we're going to talk about the Apocrypha.
Yeah. I said they were talking about, there are all these scholars who are like, the Bible is this thing that has been controlled and manipulated, and dude said this and then dude said that, but we have this unwritten inherent knowledge of like, no, it's the word of God. And it's like, no, it was never the word of God. It was always written by some dude who was, and I was like, you know what I would believe to be God? Yeah. Like the only thing you could hand to me and I'm like, oh fuck, this is it, would never be a book written by man, but it would be like some fucking ancient device that plugs into your ear and then speaks to you telepathically. You're like, oh shit, that's from God.
Yeah.
Everything else is a fart.
Thank you, Lucas. That is interesting. So you place precedence over the sort of hearing faculty rather than
How
seeing.
did nobody think that a book with pen and paper was man? They're like, no, that's God.
Well, it's like through divine intervention, the man is inspired to write.
But then you get to cherry pick what books you want and what books you don't want.
Every single time, every religion, there's always like, oh, you're a nutcase, we're not listening to you. That seems
Burning
good.
bush, get in.
We can go, you can sort of trace this back to, Paul or Matthew or Luke. But, some people are like, you're trying to fill the gap, specifically with the Gnostic Gospels or the Apocryphal.
Well, I found out the only thing that they can trace back to direct Jesus times are the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Right, because people started writing long after his death. And the
1,000
same was true for Muhammad.
years.
The same was true for Muhammad. Like, there's no actual writings from the time of
Jesus
Muhammad.
never picked up a fucking papyrus and a Sharpie. He never did.
He had no quill.
He had no quill.
Well, he was just out there doing his thing.
Was he?
He was all about doing it, you know? He was washing people's feet. He was telling prostitutes and beggars and lepers
they were
that
chill.
they were chill.
He was telling taxpayers to like
He's like, fuck the government.
dick, but
all cops are bastards. Fuck Rome. I love my dad. We're the same guy.
But yeah, I was like, but how cool would it be if we found some ancient technology that we couldn't fucking figure it out, and then we worshipped that because we were like, whoa, what is this?
That reminds me of the Kaaba. Have you heard of the thing that's in the middle of Mecca that people do the
Briefly,
circumnavigation?
let the
So like there's this ancient cube
that
Muslims will like do a pilgrimage to, and it was actually valuable in like pre-Muslim times as well. Like it was just this artifact that no one could explain.
It was alien space junk.
Yeah. And I guess some people, maybe they made the cube to house the meteorite or whatever it was, but it was like this object that was imbued with some kind of like spiritual power that is still housed in the Kaaba today in Mecca. Yeah. But it's interesting because
you can't look at it.
There was such a no, you cannot. There was such an emphasis on, or rather like a de-emphasis on like worshiping objects, because it was all about like God the Father. Like, no, you have to destroy this. It's all about God the Father. Like, you can't even make a picture, because then your mind will focus on the picture and you'll worship the picture. No, God
I totally kind of
understand
understand that a little bit. I don't understand the rigidity behind it, but you're like, it doesn't exist. It's if you manifest it in the third dimension, it suddenly loses. You're worshiping the wrong thing.
But it's also, in the Christian religion, it's also highly symbolic of what Jesus is purported to have done, because he's God made man. So his example is supposed to, you know, sort of remind everybody that they're capable of living that type of life as well. So like his image, he's literally like, human, God, us, we can do that.
He's chill.
So like pictures of him are really important because it's symbolic of what he did.
Right.
You know?
It's you're worshiping the messenger, right?
He's a physical representation of God.
Right.
You know?
Dude, I want to look at this cube in Mecca. Can we dress up like dudes and go to Mecca?
I would be more comfortable wearing a hijab because I can't grow a beard.
Well, right, because women aren't allowed in there. I don't think.
What?
Inside
in the Kaaba?
Around the jammer?
I believe they can. Hold on, I don't know yet though.
Let's find out, because I want to go in it.
Can women...
Full Metal, that's what I'm saying. What if we were worshiping the alien equivalent of a discarded McDonald's wrapper? That's what I secretly hope for.
Oh, I spelled women wrong. Can women circumambulate the Kaaba?
No. Yeah. It's always dudes when I see footage
Unlike
of it.
in the segregated prayer spaces of mosques and the separate wedding celebrations of conservative Muslims, men and women mix freely during Hajj rites. So walking together 7 times around the Kaaba, climbing together to the top of Mount Arafat, where supplications to God are believed to be answered, etc., etc. So they are allowed to walk around the Kaaba 7 times. Because it's part of being a Muslim.
Being able to do that.
I don't know if I'd feel comfortable doing it if I didn't believe in it.
I want to go.
It's like I feel like a tourist, like an armchair anthropologist. Like when I did a case study into like a mosque and I like attended their prayer stuff,
different.
I felt so out of place and so disrespectful to what they were doing. Just to, like from my own personal experience, I know how weird it felt to be there and for them to know that I didn't hold their beliefs. You know?
Yeah.
But that isn't to say like our presence would, you know.
No, and I
would
think
know.
going into some like a mosque is way different than going to a place that's fucking ancient. Like just to witness something like, oh shit.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's what lures me in, is like just to get a taste of the vibratory essence of this. How old is it? I mean it's like it's been there since forever.
Yeah, at least the 7th century. Mecca. I'm reading in my book right now that Mecca, there's like not a lot about Mecca in the Quran. There's like not a lot of historical names or places or dates or anything that can like link the things that are said in the Quran to like specific things that happened in time. So it's really hard to like figure out when it, like whose head it fell out of and like when and why. But
it's funny when you start digging, you start realizing that there's no you're like, uh-oh, this was never in anything.
But it almost seems purposeful in a way, because it's like to establish the legitimacy of a tradition, it needs to have like a long sort of rap sheet where you can sort of see how it developed over time. But Islam
is all about like keeping the mystery.
Yes, it's like, this is the word of God. We have to do exactly what the word of God says, and you don't get to know anything else.
Doesn't it make so much sense? It's kind of the same way how similar pyramid structures were popping up all over the world in the year, 4000 AD. There's like similar structures across. It's the same. I'm like, yeah, there's collective consciousness or something else at play. Like all these dudes were like, hold on, this is an important doctrine. Y'all need to stop being brutal motherfuckers. It's everybody kind of had the same idea.
Who do you think was saying that first?
I don't know.
Because it seems like
how old is the Old Testament?
The Old Testament, I think, is from, I don't know, 2000 BC, maybe.
2010. Britney Spears wrote it.
Britney Spears wrote the Old Testament. She lived the Old Testament. What is the thing? Free Britney, save Britney, do it for Britney. Leave Britney alone. That's what we say.
That is what we say. There's nothing worse than having a physical representation of what happens when you're chewed up and spit out by American culture. And it's like we have so many victims of that, and we're still just like, look at them. Just look at them. And you're like, no, don't.
I want to look at them. I want to watch them fall apart.
Yeah, just stop.
I want to see the destruction. It's like looking at a train wreck. Can't look away. But she started as a child star, so that's like, I don't know how you get out of that. Where's Drew Barrymore? Is she doing good stuff? I think she got out at a good
she's fine.
time.
I feel like there's a lot of child stars who are raised. Man, hard switch up from Mecca to Britney Spears.
It's all connected.
It's all connected. I think there's a commonality between bad parents, like the stage moms and the stage dads.
Exploitative, yeah.
Exploiting their children and not protecting them, or they're doing what they think, they're protecting what they think is important versus letting their child be autonomous. And
or be a child at all.
Yeah, and when you find out, like, I watched a documentary about Britney Spears. There's a very, very, very specific point where she lost her mind, and it would make anybody lose their mind. And her kids were taken away from her when they were babies, because it was like they were pawns in the divorce. And she was really quickly gaslit about being a bad mom and stuff. And just to I was like, there is a physiological glue that if someone were to take away it or rip it away when you are so desperately trying to protect him and be their mom. Crack, like, shattered, you know, and then she fucking missed almost all her childhood. Oh, it's like, oh, it's disgusting. It's wrong.
That is awful. That is the worst thing you could do to a mother, right? Other than killing them.
Yeah, there's some gross story that's big right now. A mom murdered her kids and her husband's new wife or ex-wife. She's like, Jesus Christ knows what I did, and he's fine with it, and he gets me. Jesus Christ gets me, and I'm like, uh-oh. Ooh.
That's not exactly what it means.
You didn't have to kill him. You just didn't have to fucking do that. You can give them away. You can pass them off to a grandparent and say, I'm losing it. I'm going to drive off of a fucking cliff. There's stuff you can do.
But there's no rationality behind
No. There's no
those
logic.
actions.
There's no logic or rational brain. I took a funny note down. I'm trying to take notes now for MAWPOD. Because MAWPOD! Ah! I want to know why the deer outside of Twin Peaks doesn't have big titties.
The deer?
So, do you know Twin Peaks? It's like the Hooters equivalent, but it's somehow a riff on the TV show.
What?
I don't... dear Discord, is Twin Peaks a thing anywhere else? Let me see.
I only think about the show. That's all I know.
Most people would, right? But I think they're like, Twin Peaks is like a fucking they're like
two big titties off in the distance.
No, I think it's an Austin's. Okay, it's an Austin specific, right? So here, does that make you think of the show Twin Peaks?
I guess because she's wearing a lumberjack shirt.
So she's got giant tits, but they have a big giant deer outside of their restaurant.
If the deer had titties, that would suggest some type of bestiality. That, you know, like if you sexualize the animal, then you're sort of inviting people to fuck the animal, right?
Well, I just don't understand. I have more questions than answers because none of it makes sense if you think about it, right? It's like,
oh no. Oh no.
I remember my friend Adam and I used to go to Hooters because we thought it was fucking funny, but then we just liked all the attention we would get from the waitresses, and then you start seeing why. Okay, sure, they're cute and their tits are hanging out or whatever, but they're also like sitting down with you and like touching your shoulder, and you're like, oh, this is
they make you feel seen.
They make you feel seen. And suddenly we're just going there all the time.
Like, oh, you can pay for affection and wings. That's funny you bring up Hooters. When I was traveling, yes, when I was traveling abroad, this lady, I was talking to this Sicilian lady, and she was like, "Oh yes, I know America. Do you know Hooters?" And I was like, "What?" That's what you think of when you think of America? That's our imprint on the global scene.
Everything about this country. It is
Coca-Cola and Hooters?
Such a shit show. It's such a shit show. We have no idea what democracy is anymore. We're just shitting on it. We want one party to rule them all. The sacred doctrines are out the window. Nobody visits them. It's just, it's so good. It's so good.
So chaotic. It's crazy. So I did a bunch of research on like sex versus gender. Wasn't that something you wanted to talk about?
Yes, because I was watching how Aztec children were raised, and it was just
that's the only video I've watched that you sent me so far. The actual bringing up of the Aztec children. I haven't watched the other ones yet.
Yeah, just cool stuff about how the church just... And then the pyramid ruins are behind the big church in Mexico City. So you can walk behind it and see old school stuff.
Well, I was going to say also in Rome, like they just kept building on top of stuff that was already there. Because it's like Well, people walk by here to go to the market all the time
and
anyway.
At the
so,
time,
like,
they're not thinking 1,000 years. They're
No.
like, fuck those guys,
they're
whatever.
like, oh, this is no longer of use to us. This is a good spot though. Let's put it here. I don't know. Not to oversimplify the complete rape and pillage of ancient cultures.
Yes, I brought it up because it was like the girls went to... Oh, that's why I brought it up. Girls went to looming. They learned the hearth. Their umbilical cord, when a daughter was born, was put on the hearth, and then a son's umbilical cord was buried in the battlefield. Like, okay, there's a natural gender construct. There's still influence, right? Like, no question, you're a girl, this is what you do. And I don't know how many women were crossing those boundaries, and
Sure.
and if they were they making history? You know,
Yeah.
who knows? Mulan did, but other than that, I don't know.
Mulan.
Thanks, Mulan.
Amelia Earhart.
But then I was wondering, it's not necessarily okay. How long were humans like totally chill with that? Like, this makes sense because, you know, the boys want to play rough and smack into each other and smack each other in the head, and the girls are like, no, don't touch me, and they cry. And then how much of that is what's happening now is natural evolution? Like, okay, we've made it this far this time around. How much of us are, how much of our DNA is just altering or changing because of that? And because we are going forward, we've built all the things, we have all the tools now, things are different, computer sciences, and I don't know, it almost feels like there's a wheel turning, and we're witnessing, like, okay, and I'm like, are we gonna all lose our genitals and like suddenly become elongated like aliens, and then we're the ones that, you know, we procreate with our minds? And
I don't know. I think it's really interesting.
You sent me a titty monk last night though, and I was like, I
thought
want to
titty monk
hear
was
about the
great.
titty monk.
Because I was reading about ascetic monks, like people who deliberately deprive themselves of sensual pleasures, like eating and sleeping and just like being comfortable. And I thought it was interesting how sometimes women would engage in those activities as well and sort of shirk the responsibilities that their gender norms would sort of thrust upon them. But I do think it's interesting to note like the different ways that boys and girls were treated in the Aztec society, but I don't think that that necessarily means that sex equals gender performance. Like, because even though, you know, here's what they would typically do for boys and girls, there's always going to be exceptions to, you know, how people turn out, you know. So like I was reading about this two-spirit concept, which is from indigenous tribes in North America, where you know, biologically you can be male or female, but your gender can be feminine male or masculine male, and your gender could be feminine woman or masculine woman, and you have 4 genders as opposed to just like 2 choices. And it's not even a choice. It's like most people who are gay or lesbian, they never consciously decided to become gay or lesbian. Right. They just always felt different from a very early age. And usually their family will observe their behaviors and say, oh, he's different, or oh, she's different. And I think it's really cool that in a lot of indigenous sort of ancient cultures, there was space for that. There was space for those people to exist.
Samoan too. There's like a whole tribe of men who dress up more feminine and have all of their own rituals.
Absolutely. And I forget the name of the actual feminine man and masculine woman. I think it was Burgash, something like that. But they were seen as having like greater vision because they could see from both sides, as opposed to a feminine woman who could only see from a feminine woman's side, and a masculine man who could only see from a masculine man's side. So I think that to equate your physical, biological, hormonal gear with how you actually perform your gender is not really very accurate as far as
Right.
like how things really shake out in the world.
Right, or I don't know enough about Egyptian culture, but it's like Cleopatra was treated as a scholar, as a warrior. There were expected holistic views. Like you had to learn how to fight, but you also had to learn how to sew, and you also, were a scholar, and you also, you had to be all encompassing. That may have only been royalty, like, oh,
Right.
you're a daughter of a pharaoh, so this is your life. You get the pass. You get to do whatever you want.
Yeah, you don't have to toil in the home. But I was also looking at other sort of anthropological case studies of gender performance, because you were wondering specifically about like tribal peoples.
Oh yeah.
And whether the division of labor was based on sex or gender. And there's like these examples in the Philippines where prior to like colonial infiltration, men and women did the same chores. Like they all slashed and burned, they all planted, they all went on the hunt, they all broke down the carcass. Like everybody did kind of everything. But then when the colonization took place, those European ideals of patriarchy and that separation and that new inequality, like that lack of balance of power, that was imposed on them.
Right. So the Aztecs weren't influenced by colonization yet. So how many of them were like, oh no, you both had to fucking do the shit.
Well, the Aztecs were fucking gnarly. Like they were ripping people's hearts out.
They were brutal
on the reg. So I don't know if the way that they did their society is really worth emulation. I love their art and I think their belief system was cool, but the level of sacrifice that they had to do on a regular basis is disturbing.
Yes.
Like it's metal, but I would not want to live near them, around them, whatever.
Well, I was asking Lucas, I was like, okay, how much of this is colonial observation? They're just saying like, looking for excuses and Lucas is like, no, they decimated each other.
Yeah.
They decimated each other, like, because he's read a bunch of ancient archaeological, that's the whole reason we went down there, is because you're like, whoa, we don't learn about this. And it's a 3-hour plane ride away. And it's so cool to go see. It's just way more accessible than Egypt. Way easier to get to. Way easier to navigate. And he was talking about the brutality of infighting and just dominating the Olmecs. Just everybody losing their life and whatever. Same thing with the Native Americans. There was a lot of, it's tribal warfare, fighting for land and...
Thank you for watching, you guys. It's been a great show.
Somebody plug me in.
So
were there any other
violence
examples
in the
besides the Philippines of like
the one that I looked at this morning was the Philippines, and then I watched this video about the two-spirit in the Native American nations. But as far as, I just wanted to make like a sweeping statement that like sex does not equal gender, and we would not be considered humans if we didn't have culture. Culture is what makes us different from animals, and our culture varies so much across the globe because it's like literally you fucking come up with some way that you want everybody to behave, and then if people like it, they do it. And it shifts. It's there's influences from outside of your culture that make it change or influence it. And like I want to come up with more examples, but I just have a lot of pages where I've highlighted different things about gender and sex and like how capitalism is the reason. But then I have this cool article about female asceticism, but it doesn't really have to do with anything. I don't know. I've been reading a lot. Here, let me open my notes.
So Insatiable Mind says it's difficult to separate learned behaviors from genetic ones. Also, would different historical environments favor more or less gender differences? Yeah, it's like...
Wait, can you say it again?
Yeah. It's difficult to separate learned behaviors from genetic behaviors. Also, would different historical environments favor more or less gender differences? I was wondering that too. It's like, okay, let's go to the very beginning of Mesoamerican tribes. Are you dictating females do this because that's just you have to eat, otherwise we all die?
Yeah.
You need to eat because you're pregnant, because you birth the children. It's like, is that how it worked, or what was the influence thousands of years ago?
Well, it's hard to say because our brains are like, okay, when did this activity begin? When did it begin? Who was the first one? But there was never a beginning. Like, we crawled out of the ocean, and at some point we stood up in a field. We climbed out of our trees, and we picked up a stick and whacked somebody on the head with it. Like, we never really
so
began.
Like
it was always just this,
of
like,
gender normative.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing that we can call out is a woman has a uterus where she can build another person, and so that, to me,
takes up more time.
The biggest reason why we would sit down and like cook a pancake,
because you're fucking hungry all the time.
You got the baby sucking on your tit, and you can't go out and hunt because a baby's sucking on your tit, and you have to protect the baby. Like, that's the biggest, most simplistic explanation of why the separation of the division of labor shook out the way that it did. If everybody had a uterus, it wouldn't be like this at all.
And then that's true. And then it evolved into what it is today, which, to me, what has evolved is like there's this big thing rearing its head where what got us here doesn't work anymore, and you see how fucking violent and awful it was, and how we had to squish into this thing for everybody to buy a phone, and now we're like, oh, I hate, existence.
Yeah, it feels soulless.
Yeah. We're like squirming out of a waxy coat.
For the longest time, well, in the early 20th century, women, they couldn't do anything. They couldn't have property. They couldn't have...
I feel like we're wrapping up something that we've been chewing on for a really long
time. I was
time.
thinking this is one of our predominant topics we always come back to. It took us 49 shows. So in the year 1900, women gained the right to keep their earnings and hold property.
Tight.
Prior to that, this is American women's rights in America. In 1769, it was determined by the fathers, our forefathers, the very being and legal existence of the woman is suspended during the marriage, or at least is incorporated into that of her husband, under whose living and protection she performs everything. So a woman her identity is erased.
Suspended, yeah.
And
into
this
the ether.
Emphasis on capitalism and like earning power and property, and the whole thing with marriage is like you get that woman's dowry. It's like a transaction between you and her father.
Goats, and now it's
all
coins
about,
and yeah.
like that sort, like what do I get out of it? And so now she's my property. She's my where's the thing I wrote? There's a terrible thing about she's no longer a person. She became the slave of his lust and a mere instrument for the production of children.
Slave of lust. That comes back to the desecration of the goddess and how he became the subservient orifice holder. Like,
all the orifices.
You've got more orifices. Game over. Or I guess one more. That's what it is. It's like that. It's as simple as that. You have one more space I can infiltrate. So fuck you. Like,
literally. We can laugh about it now.
Finally.
But I'm sure it wasn't funny to all of the people who had to live
Can
through
you
it.
please? Oh, maybe you don't have it.
What?
I have it. You fucking sent me the most glorious voice message about Queen Theodora.
Oh, Empress Theodora.
Empress Theodora. And I was like,
Do you want me to read that?
I was like, this bitch fucking
The last
rips.
on our last episode, I spoke about her, but I was like, I don't think the podcast
I thought you should
is
read
ready.
that. We can be as explicit as we want.
Explicit. I'll read it.
I'm
I'll
a big
fucking read it,
rainbow
babe. So
rainbow ball buffering today.
Let's see here. Here we go.
Ruby slapped a butt sticker on my laptop without telling me.
Probably because she saw mine.
Yes.
She's like, you need to have.
Where's
A
the don't
computer.
swear guy? Oh, dude, he needs to be whipped.
So this is from the book I'm currently reading. It's called In the Shadow of the Sword. I've probably plugged it like 17 times because it's a long book. This part is talking about Emperor Justinian, who was one of the Roman emperors, and his wife, Theodora.
Yeah.
Even her bitterest critics, of whom there were many, grudgingly acknowledged that Theodora, consort and beloved of the emperor, was a woman of exceptional abilities. Shrewd, far-sighted, and bold, she ranked in the opinion of Justinian's cattier critics as more of a man than her husband ever did. Rumor had it that at the height of the deadly riots in 532, with Constantinople ablaze and Justinian twitchily contemplating flight, she stiffened the imperial backbone by declaring, with a magnificent show of haughtiness, that purple makes for an excellent shroud.
Oh,
I get chills. Steel of this order, in a woman, was unsettling enough to the Roman elite, but even more so were the origins of the empress. Theodora, like an exotic bloom sustained by dung, had her roots, so it was darkly whispered, deep in filth. Dancer, actress, and stand-up comic. I was like, oh, filthy. Those are all my favorite things to do. She also had, long before puberty, been honing on slaves and the destitute, a career even more scandalous. Her vagina, it was said, might just as well have been in her face. And indeed, such was the use to which she put all three of her orifices that she would often complain that she did not have orifices in her nipples as well. I'll let that sink in. The gangbang had never been held that could wear her out. Most notorious of all had been her trademark floor show, which had seen her lie on her back, have her genitals sprinkled with grain, and then wait for geese to pick the seeds off one by one with their beaks. Baby. Such were her talents, so her critics sneered, that had won for her the besotted devotion of the master of the world. Yet, this sorely underestimated both husband and wife. Theodora had certainly been a whore. Even her admirers admitted as much. What mattered to them, however, and to Justinian as well, was not her record of sin, but rather the radiant glory of her repentance. The one-time prostitute had emerged as a devout monophysite, a committed student of famous theologians, a woman more formidable in her understanding and sympathy toward the wronged than any individual ever. Perhaps it was only natural that someone who had endured the pecking of geese at her private parts for public amusement should have empathized with the downtrodden.
Can we summon her through a seance? Teach me your ways.
Could
not
we
the orifice
even
stuff, but just like
handle her presence?
it just sounds like this is finally when everybody's like, who would you eat dinner with if you could pick
Empress
any?
Theodora.
Yes.
1,000%.
Because it just sounds like such a progressive, badass, fucking smart, I don't know,
Because
bow
if
in
you
my
think about
presence.
it, if she had to become a prostitute before she even hit puberty, it wasn't her choice.
No.
And if you're that young and your parents or whoever owns you at that time, she was probably a slave, whoever is in charge of you tells you you have to be a prostitute, that's your like formative period. She probably learned to like enjoy somewhat what she was going through.
Well, how much of that is neuroplasticity? Just
Yeah,
being like,
exactly.
everything's fine.
I actually love this.
Yeah.
But the fact that she came from that type of world and then became the empress of the Roman Empire is like, maybe I'm not aiming high enough.
I know, there's just something so cool about when I listened to that voice message a couple times, 'cause I was like, damn, she's telling kings to fucking eat a dick, and like, I see right through you as she gets her vagina packed by geese for money. You're like, who is this mystical badass lady?
Holy shit. Yeah, I love the part where
I
her
also-
husband is he's like, we should probably leave, right? They're gonna fucking kill us. And she's like, royal purple is a perfect burial shroud or whatever. I fucked it up, but it's amazing. Incredible. But see, it's like, we have these like gender norms and gender expectations, but they're throughout history, throughout our entire evolution as people, there's always exceptions to those rules.
Oh yeah.
So to whom are these rules valuable, and who do they serve?
I don't know. I often think there's many instances in my day-to-day life where I'm like, sheeple, like, God damn, I would never trust you. If I was being wronged, you would fucking keep your mouth shut. Like, I don't trust you. Like that behavior, I'm thinking this as I'm standing in line at Chuck E. Cheese or whatever. So just know that's
Sheeple. I'm surrounded by sheeple.
You just see, don't you witness that? You're like, what the fuck are you doing? Or, the Karens of the world. So to me, there's like a good 40% of people who just need to be told what to do.
Or break them up into smaller groups, because I feel like when it's 3 or more people, they don't act. Or they sort of act on whoever in the group is bold enough to say what they should do. Because it's like, individuals you can usually like reason with,
or back them into a corner and be like,
empathize with, but people in groups get nasty and they like justify really terrible behavior just because everybody else is doing it.
Yes.
And that's like, okay, that's where the word sheeple comes from, because what are you doing? You have your own mind, you can make your own decisions.
They're like,
but
no, but I'm gonna stand in this line that goes to nowhere.
Kevin was doing this, and then also Nancy was doing it too, so I thought it was okay.
It happened at the Target. There was a line. I don't know what is happening at that Target. Megan knows that I have complained. I've complained about nothing or no one, but this place might as well be abandoned. I mean, it's just like...
The way that they stock it is they just back a truck up and open the door and kick
know
everything into the store.
I'm like, you guys should have your Target permit taken away, because it's a disaster, and it had made shopping there unbearable. And I just let them know that, because they emailed me, how was your time at Target? I was like, oh,
you want to fucking know?
You want to fucking know? And then like the GM reached out to me. I was like, wait. Go look at your store. Don't ask me. It's insane. And so they were like, no, I am not exaggerating, 20 to 30 people waiting in line. It went all the way down to the food. And I was like, I don't believe this for a second. Something is seriously wrong here. They were all waiting in the wrong line. So I skipped 30 people, arguably 40 minutes waiting in line, by bringing my stuff to the other checkout lane. And I thought I had maybe walked into a glitch in the Matrix. I was like, oh, okay, this is one of those moments where we're, you're starting to see like, oh, we live in a simulator stuff. I was like, I think I stumbled across this. But that goes to show like those people who are just so willing.
Yeah. They don't want to make a decision. They're like, oh, this is what we're doing.
Stand here.
This is what we're doing. But there have been numerous times when I've walked into that store to like get one specific object, and I see the line and I just put it back and I leave.
There's something wrong.
But there's a new, like, you can do this life hack where you get your object and then go up to the front, like the little snack station.
Yes.
and check out there because nobody goes up there.
This woman budged me.
It's a register.
Because Ruby was having a fit, so I wasn't filling the 2-foot gap. And she like budged me and I was like, hey. And she's like, sorry, I got here first. And I was like, I am not engaging with you. I'm so tired. So I just got out of line and went to the snack thing. Because I was like, fuck you, bitch. And she was so pissed about it. And I'm just like...
Wait, she was behind you?
She walked in front of me because Ruby was having a meltdown. But I was in line, but there was like, 2 feet. But I hadn't moved the 2 feet.
Ugh. What? People need to like see each other.
Yesterday, I invited all the moms. I'm talking Erica, I'm talking Sarah, I'm talking Melinda. So that's like 6 babies. That's 6 kids all under the age of 3. I don't give a fuck. We go to this like indoor play place, and then Sarah wants to go to Cabo Bob's, which is a burrito. It's fine.
Yeah. I like their fish tacos.
And
I love a fish taco.
We are getting dirty looks. People are
to the
annoyed.
Play place?
No, at
Cabo
Bob's because we have so many kids, and this place is filled to the brim with tech bros.
Oh, they're terrified of kids.
And Sarah was like, "Their kids are screaming because they're all like, there was magic happening. They're bouncing off of each other and whatnot." And I felt bad. We were all like just witnessing the absolute chaos, but the amount of dirty looks, I'm like, fuck this culture. You guys don't fucking appreciate family. No. We're all out here alone.
They're
trying
all out
to
there
feed
trying
our
to make
kids.
a bag. All they want to do is make money and get their dick sucked.
And I was like, none of you get your dick sucked, and none of you have seen a pussy in years, because like, you would care more if you were fucking in tune with it, but you're so isolated that you don't
They're
care.
probably all
or
addicted to
aware.
porn. And, the amount of plastic that they put into the world is... It's terrible because they are kids,
And somebody raised you, and you came out of a pussy at some point.
Ostensibly, you could have come out of just the top.
I still consider that the pussy. You're going to come out of that either way.
Oh, heard. Yeah, that's awful. And that's like...
But that's
why...
like
patriarchal gaze. That's like, you should be at home. This should be hidden from view. I don't want to experience this.
But also this woman that was
home.
working there was scoffing because the kids kept getting in her way. And I was like, oh, bitch, I will take you outside. Because it's like you touch the I don't get mad, but when I do, I'll eat your face in front of the person that birthed you, and like I won't care.
Yeah.
And she was doing that, and I'm like, give us a fucking break.
Yeah.
What is this, a fucking Gucci store? No, it's a burrito spot. Fuck you.
It's I love when children are out in public and doing their thing, because they don't have this sort of social propriety that everybody else slaps on their face when they go out. Kids will just say what they think and they'll do whatever they want. And I think that's fucking beautiful. And I love the chaos that it brings because it makes life more exciting. I don't want it to be like
those people don't want to be excited.
And like there's no possibility for anything wacky to happen because everybody's just standing in line and being quiet and looking at their phone.
So that's part of the fucking gender normative puzzle, is that there's so many people who just will stand in line, do the thing, mom mentality. Much of their personality is erased. There's no bold, there's no fearless. There is just tell me what you want me to wear and what to do. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's like a good chunk. Maybe it's 50% if I had to guess.
Well, there's always this big desire for people to like fit in and be accepted by everybody around them, and like we want to like look good and like we have control and like we're in charge. And when you have a kid, that is all called into question because you can't control. I mean, you can to an extent. You can pick them up and leave, but you can't control the way they behave for the most part, especially in a public place. I sympathize with a person who has a kid who is erupting and they have like a grocery cart full of food. Like, what do you do?
It's nightmarish.
That is an awful situation to be in, and they don't need, fucking scorn and scrutiny.
Guess what?
They need empathy. They need sympathy.
A woman came up to me, an older woman, and she put her hand on my shoulder and she said, "Take my table." on. She's like,
She knows.
she knew. She's like, that's a lot of babies. I'm like, yeah, we're going to squeeze them all into, like, we're just going to keep cramming them in the booth.
But I don't think you should stop trying to socialize these babies. I think that it's really important.
No, I'm going to pick an even more tech bro-y restaurant next time. Because
Was it the Cabo Bob's on 30th?
it's the Cabo Bob's off of 183 North and like Anderson
heard.
Mill.
Oh, okay. I've been to that one too, yeah. That one is pretty spacious. It seems
It
like
was
you
packed. We went at like in the second we were
I
done, it was
see.
empty. It was clearly
it was
lunch
a
break.
rush.
Yeah.
And like tensions are high with employees when it's lunch rush, and like I'm sure it just made it more
I tried to
chaotic.
be compassionate towards whatever she was going through, but like, do not scoff at my child who didn't even do anything wrong or spill anything. It's
Yeah.
like, do not do that.
People always want to go back to the separation between us, but I feel like that's such a toxic way to imagine our relationship with everybody else.
There's a fun
We're all so much more similar than anybody chooses to realize, and it's maddening because we could have like so much more cohesion and like love and happiness and peace if people stop trying to see all the differences that we espouse.
I also think our political system, even on a local level, would be significantly different if we stood up, there was more cohesion, gave a shit, cared about more, versus cramming every orifice with a bingeable show, or just
Bingeable show, or a new iPhone or whatever. Man, I wish I was there to give support to the baby tribe.
next time, because I didn't think we were gonna grab lunch, but it was just happening.
That
And
was
you're
a bold choice.
No, but I also don't want to be fucking cornered to the pizza place or the Chuck E. Cheese. I don't want that.
Well, you've spoken about how hard it is to find a restaurant that is accommodating to families, and when you find one, you're like, yeah, let's go there. They're really nice to us, and they don't ostracize us for having kids. And they give your kid a piece of dough, and they give your kid some crayons and something to draw on.
Oh, it was why we need to go to Jack Allen's. It was the first place. Like, Lucas and I never sacrificed. When we go out to eat, it's only to get stuff that we aren't making. So like sushi or I don't know, whatever. But we finally made the decision to check out Jack Allen's, and they were like,
I'm so jealous.
they came with the seat and the crayons, and I was like, in a sippy cup, I was like, where the fuck am I?
What's going
Oh my
God. They anticipated our needs.
You didn't give it's like I've been to so many places who gives Ruby they just don't have those things. And I was just used to it, and I didn't give a fuck. But no, I was like, oh, that's why this place is packed every day. It's because you accommodate families.
Absolutely.
You make it easier.
And I think there are a lot of people, I could think of a handful of people that I've worked with in the industry who just hate kids as a rule. Like, they never intend to have kids themselves, whether because they're homosexual or they choose not to reproduce or whatever. They don't like kids and they don't like families. I'm like, well, that's a really shitty perspective, man.
Well, it's the same that I put that in the same category of like, Lucas had a coworker who was like, I don't cry when people die in movies, only dogs. And she would talk about how, and she was like, that idea, she constantly like brought it up, and Lucas was just, and I've always hated that. It's like, yeah, of course we feel bad for animals because they're at our mercy, all the ones that live in people's houses.
They're innocent, yeah.
But that's wrong, the way that you're thinking, to not mourn humanity or think children are sacred. You don't have to have them. Don't fucking have them. Mm-hmm. But it's like to be like, ugh. It's like, dude, for real? That's how you think about society?
Yeah, it's fucked up, but humans are the one who have the concept of original sin, not dogs.
True. Yeah, so we hate ourselves. So what are they projecting?
We've been taught to hate ourselves.
They hate them. Okay, we hate ourselves. And when someone says, I hate kids, it's like, oh, you hate our humanity. Like, it really has nothing to do with...
I think that is a not commonly held ideology, but it's easy to resort to that because all you ever see is like the shitty things that people do on the news. And you're like, oh, people are bad.
It's funny. I never liked kids either, but I would never not help one or not help somebody out or say that.
Of course not.
But like, yeah, I was never a kid person. It was always really was lost on me, but I, it's
you
like,
grew up.
but I grew up and was like, you got to help your fellow man. Mostly because I saw how much people don't help,
Yeah. I mean, you know me. I'm a helper. I love to help. And growing up, I would babysit all the time. I always felt like I had a special affinity with children because I have like...
Dude, will Linda notice that in you immediately? She's like, oh, she's one of those people. She just... Kids love her. She
this
loves
sort of
kids.
like unbridled joy that
Yes.
leaks out. And I'm grateful that I have that characteristic. And I love when I get to just like bounce around with kids. And
they're in the shit that they say, the stuff they want to do. I didn't know this until I had one. You're like, whoa.
Where's that coming from?
Oh, it's not all just like Coco Melon and lollipops. It's like there's some like Ruby sat down. She's like, look at me. I was like, okay. She's like, I want you to tell me about somebody you knew that died. I was like, okay.
She said that?
Yes. She's been obsessed with death lately, so we've been talking a lot about it. And last night she turns up and she goes, did you know that when you die, you lose your bones? And I was like, you do? Actually, that's one of the only things that stays around. But it's in her head. I don't know why. I don't,
That's so wild.
I mean, I guess it's like it starts like they're obsessed with boo-boos and blood and what happens if you bleed too much. And
you start to learn more about the like corporeal form that you inhabit. You're like, whoa, okay. All of a sudden it's all starting to kind of make sense.
Yeah.
So we don't get to keep this forever.
She says often, I don't want you to die when you get older. And I'm very pro, it's going to happen. And Lucas is like, why are you saying that right now? And I'm like, because I don't know. She's asking. Like, it's not like I'm teaching her about death. So here's my finality. But I also don't want to lie to her.
Yeah. And we've talked about this briefly before where it's like, her conception of time and the...
Oh, she started saying today or today tomorrow. She's like today or today tomorrow. And I was like, oh, what? Tomorrow. Just tomorrow.
She said
tomorrow.
5 weeks ago the other day. I was like, what? How do you know about weeks?
Time is...
She's trying to grasp it. She really tries.
Sorry, guys. We've got truck updates.
I gotta get new tires as well on my little Mazda.
On your Mazda. Do you not know I had for dinner last night?
What?
Half a baguette with that blue cheese butter and heavily seasoned tomatoes.
Oh.
Because I've been on a I don't want anything train again.
Yeah.
I devoured that entire melon.
Yeah.
One sitting. I fucked my shit up because I ate too much melon.
No, it gave you the crumbs.
I was just like...
Well, I'm glad you ate the melon. I wish you had eaten some rice or like a multigrain bagel with it.
It's so weird whatever's happening. I'm very excited. I'm going to party so hard in November. It's ridiculous. But the blue cheese butter with the baguette and the heavily seasoned tomatoes.
What's blue cheese butter? Did you buy it like that or did you mix blue cheese?
No, you didn't. I bought it like that.
Oh, awesome.
Salt and Thyme had like their own butters. I try to support them. That's the butcher shop that we get all of our badass meats from. And their blue cheese butter is like so fucking good.
Hell yeah. It's just like a compound butter. Like you could probably put a pat of it on a grilled steak and have a blue cheese butter steak. I made some derivation of a lob yesterday, which I thought was just a Thai dish, but it was actually Laotian. It comes from, it's like the Laos national dish. But yeah, I used a lot of chilies.
Dude, nobody talks about Laos. I went to school with a lot of Laos refugees.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to paint murals of our family lineage, and all of the children from Laos. It was like rivers of blood. Yeah.
Oh, God.
I remember my mom being like, oh, shit. Oh, God. They maybe didn't think this one out. But also at the same time, it's like, that's what they remember.
Holy shit. Yeah. Like, there's so much. I assume it's all because of colonization and like
let's find out what happened.
France's involvement in the slicing and dicing of Southeast Asia. I wonder what our world would be like if we didn't have this legacy of global warfare. I've been really fascinated by warfare, and I want to read
Speaking of warfare, the Laotian Civil War was from 1959 to 1975. It was a civil war in Laos waged between the communist Pathet Lao and the royal government. It's associated with the Cambodian Civil War and the Vietnam War. It is also called the Secret War among the American CIA Special Activities Center. Ooh. Lots of people died.
I need to read more Karl Marx.
End pod.
End pod.
End pod. Ooh. Political chaos.
Yeah, you don't really hear a lot about Laos on the global stage. I assumed that lob was a Thai dish because I first ate it in like a Thai context. And then I looked it up, and there's like a region of Thailand in the northeast called Isan. So it's like an Isan Thai dish, but Isan also shares a border with Laos. And so I don't know, the way that those countries in Southeast Asia are like cut up is so strange. And there's got to be a reason why it was cut up like that. Like Vietnam is like this long skinny bit.
Well, yeah, it goes long skinny Burma, Thailand, Laos, Vietnam. It's like
it's weird.
Lasagna of countries.
And there's got to be a reason. There's just so much to learn.
There is so much
that
to
we
learn.
Didn't learn in school. And I could see like why. Like there's so much that you need to like cram into a kid's head. Of course, American history is going to be emphasized because of the nationalistic bit. Like we want you to have a stake in the country where you live.
Medium rare.
Delicious. I went to a barbecue on Saturday.
Where at?
Juan's house. He's
How was it?
Argentinian, so his like steak craft is very, very good. And I felt kind of guilty because I've been trying to avoid animal bits, but
I thought you decided a balanced, like you're mostly veg unless
yeah, exactly. So
unless you're invited over or whatever.
Yeah, my thing is now, if it's left over from a class, I'm gonna eat it. Or if I'm invited to a restaurant or to a party, whatever. So he had prepared ribeye, flank steak,
Grilled?
all
the
grilled,
Argentinian way? Yeah.
and mostly unadorned, just like seasoned with salt and pepper, but it was all cooked perfectly and so delicious. And then Jacob had brought sausages that he actually made from a deer that he had actually killed.
Hell yeah.
And like gutted and cleaned and processed himself. And I was like, oh fuck, this is like very, very delicious. And I could see this happening like once a month, or like once a killing season or something, and it being like a big deal. Like I like to think of meat as being like a luxury
when
thing.
somebody, same thing, Sarah kills and they process and smoke their own meats, and you want to taste their work. You're like, whoa, shit.
Yeah.
Suddenly there's so much more meaning, you know.
Yeah, and there's like more gratitude when it's more seldom that you do that, as opposed to like I guess the emphasis in America is like you can have whatever you want whenever you want it.
Just pay me for it and I'll clean it for you.
It just turns out that if you eat like a cheeseburger every day because it's the best food, that's not good for you. That's not good for the environment. Like, that's not good. Like, it's just not great. Like, I'm trying not to ostracize people who want to eat meat all the time, but for me, I like it as like a special occasion bit.
It should be too. Yeah.
And it's delicious. I understand. It is very delicious.
What kind of was it? Just a regular grill?
I don't remember if it was charcoal or gas. It tasted great.
Doesn't matter. He used
we
fire.
also did ice plunge. It was very cold and a little painful.
It's good for your nervous system.
It was cool. I wasn't able to stay in for very long, but I did it 3 or 4 times, like little.
What was the ice plunge setup?
So it was a recycling, like one of those big blue recycling bins with the lid on it. That had been like cleaned very thoroughly, and then like 200 pounds of ice, and then top it off with a hose. And you just jump in there. And I was like, will I be able to get out? Like, it doesn't seem easy to get out, but there are like little steps in there. We put a chair right next to it. It was very interesting. I didn't heat tap, but like I would do it again if it was really good for me. But it's not something that I want to like seek out and pursue and do all the time. It was like kind of a crazy Saturday. Yeah. I taught brunch for 3, and then I went to the barbecue at Juan's, and then did the ice plunge, and then we walked to the Austin FC stadium, and we watched a soccer game.
That's right.
And I drank so much beer.
Emma lives right by there?
Juan does.
Oh, Juan does. Okay.
And the game was, like, it was fun. I guess we were playing Juarez from Mexico. So there were some,
lose?
Yes. There were some really dedicated Juarez fans there.
We keep losing because this is the first year, that we haven't,
it seems like soccer
years,
is just now infiltrating the American consciousness, but I'm sure I'm glib on that topic as well.
Okay, so where they built that was literally like a block, not even a block away from the old Yammy Noob.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you could see it from the front door, but there's nothing over there. It's like industrial parks, and I'm like,
off Breaker
stadiums are by restaurants and bars, and
really, it makes sense to me to put something that's like revenue bringing
out
and
far away.
Then you sort of build out the smaller bits.
Maybe.
I don't know. They just needed space, and there was a lot of space there, I assume.
Yeah.
Isn't it by the JJ Pickle Research Campus?
Yeah. JJ Pickle, babe, that's an hour 20.
No shit?
For shits.
I blacked out. Someone was speaking on my behalf. I don't want it to end. I want it to go on forever. Why does it have to end? I want it to go on forever.
We got one person left. I know who it is. Is it you, Magic? Are you still in here?
Thirsty.
What's coming up? Anything?
Aaron's coming home.
She's coming. He's coming home.
I put my Patreon on freeze.
Wait, what happened? I thought you were just.
Well, I need to
going to town, babe.
Figure out how to do Apocalyptic Kitchen. I don't know where to begin. And that's what I really want to do. So I want to figure out how to do it, and then I'll return.
Hell yeah. Apocalyptic. It's key timing. Global boiling. We have now officially left.
When I came up with the idea, it was like 6 or 7 years ago, and now it all seems a little too pertinent. I don't know.
So it feels motivating, right?
Yeah. I mean, I want it to be inspirational, tongue-in-cheek. Like I said, I don't want to like browbeat people with my sense of environmental rightness, but I mostly want to have fun, but also kind of inspire a revolution?
I think everybody's on the global boiling train. I think there's no more fossil fuel oligarch.
Aren't they still in charge?
No, I've watched the people. Well, no, they're still in charge 100%. But I've watched all the people who are like, it's a hoax. Go, well, it's better. And I've always watched. I'm friends with a bunch of them on Facebook, so I've always watched them as like a barometer. Like, well, it's better than global cooling. I guess.
Okay, you don't understand the concept.
Yeah, it's like you can't deny it now. It's all this. The psyops failed.
It's like extreme. You should call it extreme weather period because it's not. It is global warming, but it's going to make winter even more devastating and cold and destructive. And
I've got the generator ready. I've got the wood on the way. The only thing I kind of need to figure out is my water supply.
I feel like we need to insulate a little better. I just, around the doors maybe, so you don't lose as much air. I don't know. They're probably well insulated. I don't know what kind of glass it is.
You know what you do is you put saran wrap and there you go.
That's right. Yeah. What do you have coming up?
I got sent a motorcycle helmet comm system by a Chinese company.
Not Cardo?
No, it's a different one. And Lucas and I went on a date on it and we just like fucked off. Like it is going to be the most fuck offiest video ever.
Oh, when Pam and Andy were here? Good.
And Lucas got like drunk and then he was just ripping it and I'm like behind him and he's like, catch up, you fucking slowpoke. I was wearing a skirt and sandals. I was like, no, because it was 114 degrees out.
Oh, wait, you were a squid?
We were squidding hard. So there's a bunch of elements in this video that are gonna most likely piss off the company, but I'm like, this is why I don't necessarily want sponsorship unless you don't give a fuck, and there's definitely sponsors out there who don't give a fuck.
Yeah,
but
there are people who know that any publicity is good.
They're like up my butt. They're like, where's the video? And I was like, do you want your shit back? Your $90 pair of I have 800 Cardos in my fucking garage. I don't need this.
Yeah.
So
wait, they're on your ass about the video coming out,
right? Because they sent me a product in exchange, but they're like, "What's the timeline?" And I'm like,
"Honey,
do you know how much shit I'm doing all the time?" It's like, no. But I'm like, this is gonna be the funniest fucking video ever.
I'm really excited about it.
And then
I'm glad that you're just fucking off on it.
Oh yeah. No, I don't. At the end of the day, don't give me money in exchange for anything.
But do, if you want to see her genuinely use it and enjoy it. Genuine. The authenticity will come out.
A lot of editing to do. I've been scammed with some BMW purchaser leads. Goodbye, everybody.
We are gonna go get the truck.
We're gonna go get the truck. We're gonna go get the truck.
We're gonna go and get the truck.
I'm almost caught up on MAWPODs.
Oh,
shit! Here comes Murphy.